And we're the partners of Talanian Games. I'm Jason.
I'm Peter.
And we are joined tonight by Jeffrey Talanian. Hello, Jeffrey.
Greetings. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. All right, this week's stories. Wrap your Christmas gifts in a dungeon. The Time Stop D20 watch. Shadowrun First Edition 35th anniversary reprint is on the way. And Elon Musk calls for Wizards of the Coast to burn in hell over the making of original D&D book. All right, we'll get to that fun in a minute. Oh, and you know what else? We usually don't tell people what our just one thing is going to be, but we are going to reveal the just one thing that you'll hear at the end. This coming TotalCon will be the first James Carpio Memorial Golden Fez Gaming Awards. So we'll be talking about that at the end.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going. Let's start with wrapping your Christmas gifts in a dungeon. So there is a company that I don't know how to pronounce. It's spelled L-O-K-E Battle Mats. It could be Loki. It could be Loke. But they have done the obvious that nobody thought to do, which is to make some battle maps on gift wrapping paper. And you get 6 sheets, 27 by 19 inches. They look like, your standard modern battle maps. But they are gift wrapping paper with all that implies. You can cut them nicely. They've got the things in the back with the blank grids. They also include gift tags that have some QR codes, so you can download a digital copy of the map for home printing or a virtual tabletop. And they're $27 on Amazon, but I found them on Miniature Market for $12. So we'll put that link in the show notes. If you're wrapping some gifts, I don't know, better than using your good maps, right?
Yeah. Hey, the best part of that is because it's got squares, because it's a playing board, so it'd be real easy to cut for packages.
Keep it nice and even, right, with the scissors.
Yeah. Dude, and you could have your box on the table, and you could just do like a miniature fight before Christmas, and you could have your miniatures going through an adventure
before you
Christmas.
Unwrap anything.
Yeah.
To unwrap it, you have to defeat the encounter that's on the wrapping paper.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Idea. That is the best idea ever.
Okay, so next for Christmas 2025, some Hyperborea wrapping paper with encounters.
Yeah, man.
Well, you know what? If you're going to have some wrapping paper, you're going to have to wrap some gifts. You know what would be a great gift to wrap? I hear there's some new Hyperborea stuff that just fulfilled.
There is indeed. So we recently just finished fulfilling our latest Kickstarter, which was for 3 new adventure modules. And it took a little while to get all the shipping done, but we got it done. So some of the packages are still en route to various destinations, but we have this one here, which is the Oblation Slab of the Hepatomancer by Joe Macarone.
Man, I love your titles.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that your titles are the best, man.
And this one is a hardcover adventure. It's called The Thousand Eyes of Thaumagoria.
Nice.
Wow. Can you hold that a little closer to the camera to show the artwork? That is beautiful.
Sure.
So we have some people that listen on audio. So afterwards, maybe Jeffrey, do you want to describe that artwork for anybody who's on audio later?
So the artwork features this demonic sort of beast that has created out of its essence a noose and is hanging this thief.
There's lots of eyes. Lots of eyes.
Well, it's called The Thousand Eyes of Thaumagoria for a reason. Then we have The Vanishing Isles of the Summer King by Jonathan Bingham. Longtime artist for Hyperborea stuff.
And this one looks like we have a shipboard adventure happening.
Yeah, it's a shipborne adventure there, and it's heading to these mysterious islands where this druidic cult dwells.
And man, I've always loved, I guess pterodons is the proper word. Everybody calls them pterodactyls, but pterodons are always awesome in a fantasy setting, especially, you look at like some of the old, like the movie Fire and Ice or,
of course,
any of the old like Conan stuff, you would run into, pterodons quite a bit.
Very cool. Very cool. So I
those 3 new adventures are now available on our website now that the Kickstarter is fulfilled.
Nice.
And there's probably time to order them and get them before Christmas still, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, let's go to our next story. This one is a little weird one. It's a thing called the Time Stop D20 watch. And oh, by the way, hello to everybody in the chat. I see David and Scott in here. And Scott Congable mentions that he actually used a bunch of Loki or Loke battle mat stuff back before he found the great game Top Secret. So nice.
And David says, he says, Jeff always top-notch works. Absolutely.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
David. Great to see you here.
All right. So what do we have up on the screen? I'll describe this again. What we're looking
at. The D20 watch, right?
Yeah. It looks like a Casio watch, maybe from the 80s.
Yeah.
But this is a completely brand new thing that this guy has built. So far, he's only built one. And we found a great article where he kind of describes how he went through the whole process. Just really deep, amazing electronic nerd stuff. What he did was he put a watch together that is specifically meant for use with fantasy role playing, specifically D&D, but I think it would be adaptable to other things if they're close enough to the D20 of D&D. So it has a bunch of different settings that it can do. Of course, it can tell the time, right? But then it has a dice roller, like you'd expect. You can pick the different dice that you want to roll, and you can set quick rolls that are built into it. So all sorts of things like multi-dice damage rolls, D100 loot tables, rolling advantage, rolling disadvantage, they're all built into this. So you can just quickly do that. And you can do it
awesome
with just those 4 buttons on the sides, like a
awesome
little digital watch.
That's, with only a couple buttons like that, that is like reminiscent of Jobs, and like no extra anything. It better do what it can do with what you have.
Yeah, but here's why it's better than something that Steve Jobs would have done, because when Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive get together to make something, they want to get rid of every button. They want to make it slick. I mean, you take your case off your phone and it's going to fly out of your hand like a pebble from the river, right?
Yeah, yes, that's true.
This thing is built properly. One of the things that I loved about it is that he mentioned, I don't have the name of the guy who built this. I'm sorry. But he mentions that he specifically used clicky, clacky, tactile switches instead of squishy little buttons like you would have gotten on watches. So you press that button, it goes kerchunk.
Kerchunk, yeah.
Kerchunk. He used a segment LCD display because that's like kind of the style they used back in the 70s. You would have been able to make something like this in 1978. But it also means the battery life on this thing could be measured in years. I mean, these things, with how good batteries are now, you would never have to change the battery in this. And what I really love is he mentions that it does not have an alarm because alarms on digital watches are no fun.
Right. And you don't want an alarm, when you're playing games and stuff. That's the last thing you want.
Because I don't know if did you guys ever have a digital watch like that?
Yeah.
A Casio, yeah, when I was younger, yeah.
Were you ever able to figure out how to use the alarm on it?
I don't think I ever used that, no.
No. I would have mine would go off when I didn't want it to.
I had one of these, I can't remember what brand it was, but it was super cool. It had like it had like a timer, but then it had a countdown timer. It had all these things. And I just remember, and I'm so glad you brought this up because I haven't thought about that watch since I was 16, I don't think. But that was the coolest watch ever. I don't even know what happened to it.
But here was the problem back then. And it's because, I had the Casio and I didn't know how to do a lot of things on it. And I lost the tiny little booklet that came with it. And there was no internet. There was nothing to look up. Once you lost it, you were on your own to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
Man, I still have some like that in a drawer somewhere. Every now and then I'll buy an old digital watch thinking how cool I'm going to feel wearing it. And then I just don't.
Dude, I can't get back into wearing a watch, I don't think.
This one I would, though. This one
maybe.
I would.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
And so, all right. So the company is called Time Stop. It's timestoptech.com. And as far as I can tell, this was the prototype. He got it working, and they are going to put it into production. I doubt it's going to be available for Christmas, but I want one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if he's going to do a Kickstarter for it.
Yeah. Probably. I mean,
he should. He should. This is a Kickstarter thing.
I mean, it's done. So
Right.
this is not like some Ken Whitman thing. We could actually trust it.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, the only thing that I could see is if it really took off and then he doesn't have the infrastructure in place to actually fulfill, sometimes when something is too successful,
you can be a victim of your own
like,
success.
what was it? Remember that cooler? There was that special cooler.
Oh
that
yeah,
cost
the
$100.
coolest.
Yeah. And
What
they
did
couldn't fulfill them.
What was it?
Yeah, it was a cooler. It was called the Coolest, and it had all this stuff. And it was like one of the biggest Kickstarters, one of the biggest early Kickstarters. I mean, there's some that have dwarfed it now, but back then it was a super big deal.
Right.
And the guy had all good intentions. He wasn't a Ken Whitman. He really did have he had an honest product. He was really trying to make it happen, but he just effed it up too bad. It was
well, what he was doing, what he ended up, what made a lot of people angry, as I recall, was he had it for sale at Walmart and it hadn't been fulfilled yet to his customers yet. And it was not like a difference of a few weeks. It was like several months of it being, for sale.
Oh, that's okay.
That was really anger me.
Because he was doing that to pay the bills to be able to make more, to send them something. I don't know. He had some kind of story.
Yeah. All right. Well, too much ambition will always take you down.
Yes.
You've got to learn. A man's got to know his limitations.
That's right.
All right. You want to take this next story?
Sure. All right. Let me do this. So Shadowrun, its first edition's 35th anniversary reprint is on the way. Catalyst Game Labs unleashes a blast from the past with a reprint of the original Shadowrun first edition as a 35th anniversary reprint. Now, I never I want to say I've played Shadowrun, but I don't I think I had to have played it, but I don't remember playing it.
I've only played it at conventions, so I don't know enough about the world and everything. I just assume that it's very standard cyberpunk with some extra orcs and fairies, right?
Yeah, it's basically cyberpunk D&D. If D&D was the past, I mean, that's not the official thing, but
Shadowrun's got the magic in it, right?
It does. Oh, totally. Yeah.
You play it, Jeffrey?
I did not. I had the second edition of it, and I mined it I was running some D20 modern stuff back in the day, and I was pulling stuff from it, but using D20 rules.
I mean, we were big cyberpunk players. Like my group played, Artal Saurian's cyberpunk for like years. I mean, it was like that was a big part of our gaming. We never did get into Shadowrun though.
Yeah.
I just don't think I was exposed to it because we're looking at this Elmore art up on the screen right now for Shadowrun, and we're seeing 3 characters. I think one of them's a cyber elf.
Yes.
I'm just assuming I have to add cyber to everything.
He's like a Netrunner elf.
Cyber orc, cyber elf, cyber dwarves, all that kind of stuff. So we got a cyber elf jacking into the Matrix through some sort of access panel. It's dark and gritty, and then I think 2 humans there with all their guns and magic and just everything blazing, and it just looks so fun, right? Why am I not playing this? I don't know.
Yeah, so a lot of the big, I do know this about Shadowrun. A lot of the criminal organizations and some of the corporates and stuff are run by dragons. Dragons kind of are like big bosses in that world.
Really?
Yeah. Because dragons are big, powerful things, and they're super intelligent. So a lot of the big players in the world who are running things or responsible for things, a lot of times it's dragons.
Yeah, it's kind of like picture a cyberpunk type of setting, but layer in D&D type elements into it and mash it together, and it's really kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, is there any maybe somebody in the chat knows, is there Shadowrun fiction? Can I buy a book set in the world?
I believe so.
There's got to be. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
So
yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen it like in Barnes and Noble or something.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but like as a game, even though we didn't play it, and I probably will never really play it unless I played it at a convention, which I would definitely be down for. But now I want to read some Shadowrun fiction because I think it would actually make really good fiction.
I wonder if it's sort of riffing on the Neuromancer or some Philip K. Dick or anything like that, but yet with a little bit of a fantasy touch to it.
I think it looks a lot more. I mean, I'm completely looking at this on the surface, but it does not look as deep as a Philip K. Dick novel. Maybe I think this is
Right.
a
No,
lot more
I don't
Johnny
think so.
Mnemonic level.
Right.
Right. I wasn't able to. I never brought myself to actually watch The Man in the High Castle because I love the books so much.
You
But
know
I don't.
what though? It's okay because it's completely different. You know that the book it's a short story. You know, so there's no expectation for the show to be just like the short story. They're just sort of.
Hey, I watched one season of that show, and it didn't hook me. Does it get better?
It hooked the heck out of me.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to go back and watch the whole thing again. Unfortunately, I know so much about because they created a whole new world. They created a whole new set of things that were only hinting at.
I mean, the
But
concept
is
is
it
brilliant. You know, the whole what if concept. It's what if Germany and Japan had won the war and they're dividing up the USA and who owns, they basically divided up by the Mississippi River, if I recall.
Yeah.
And, Japan owns the west side of the United States and Germany owns the east side. And it's
but Jeff, it goes beyond that. And Jason, you will know more about this because you watched the whole thing. But you learn early on in the first season. Again, I've only watched one season.
We don't know that everybody's seen this, so let's not. You know how I am about spoilers, even if.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, but the show is old.
I am a spoiler Nazi.
But it's old. All right. Well, look,
he lives on the east coast of the setting.
I will just say this: there is a sci-fi element to it. How about that?
Yes,
is that fair?
I think that's fair to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
there's definitely a sci-fi element to it.
I mean, you can basically figure the one thing that we knew about the Nazis is they were always looking for a super weapon, so you can expect some of that in there. I love a good counterfactual. I really do. And you know what? We will probably be able to talk about a counterfactual when we get to our next story, as we start talking about some of Gary Gygax's legacies, because he wrote some counterfactuals.
So anyway, so wrap this up. It will be available through Catalyst Online Store and in your friendly local gaming store on December 11th. So this could be a Christmas gift that you could wrap in that paper alongside of your Hyperborea stuff that you're going to buy.
You can get it right. It is for sale right now on their site, and it'll be at your friendly local game store on December 11th. So I will pick it up either at Tabletop Gaming Center or at Elm City Games, which are both close to me. I will definitely patronize one of the two for this.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So, Jason, here's your man, Elon, the guy you love to hate.
Elongated Muskrat has something to say. So seemingly out of the blue, not completely out of the blue, because Elon Musk does tend to pick up his signals from other people. Somebody named Grums, I don't know who this is, wrote something being mad about something. And the main thing was that Elon Musk decided to wade into this, and he wrote, and I'll go ahead and read this: nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to trash Gary Gygax and the geniuses who created Dungeons and Dragons. What the fuck is wrong with Hasbro and WotC? May they burn in hell, says the richest man in the world.
Right. This is so stupid. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. So, but you know what? I figured this is worth bringing up because it's something that's getting talked about everywhere. Everybody's got an opinion about it. I thought it would be nice for us to have an adult conversation about this, one that avoids some of the, shall we say, death of nuance that happens when you're just typing at each other, right?
Yes.
Sure.
Right.
So yeah. I think we're all kind of familiar with some of the things that have been going on. I'll set the stage a little bit. So for some time now, people have had divided opinions because the D&D online store, what's it called?
D&D, the DM's Guild.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's basically the drive-through RPG equivalent for just D&D stuff. When they've sold all of the original first edition stuff, which we welcome. It's great to have it. And they've put a disclaimer on it, which has upset some people. It basically says, hey, these are from another time. If you encounter something you don't like, it's from another time. Did they need to put that on there? Whatever. But then it kind of got doubled down a little bit when this book came out. First of all, I want to say this is an amazing book. I'm going to hold it up here.
Hold on a minute. Let me, there you go.
It's called The Making of the Original Dungeons and Dragons. It weighs about the same as a house.
Jesus Christ, dude!
slightly
You
bigger.
could like hold things up with that.
I can barely lift it. It's slightly bigger than my car. But what is amazing about this book, before I get into the intro or any of the stuff that's in there, so John Peterson, the historian of our hobby, the person who's done the most to really dig up all of the stuff. I mean, he's not the only historian. There's some great historians of our hobby out there. Shannon Appelkline is the first person that comes to mind. Michael Whitmer has done great things. A whole lot of people have. They're all excellent. But John Peterson has written Playing at the World. He's written a number of other books that really dive into exactly what happened, finding the receipts. And all these years, so I've been friends with John since before he put his book out, and got to see, as he went through all of this, and I was always just amazed at the kind of rare ephemera that he would unearth, and wished that there was some way that everybody could see it. And finally, it came out. He put this book out, and in the book, he has things like not just the original Dungeons and Dragons game, which people can find if you're a collector, not just the original manuscript of Dungeons and Dragons, but a draft before it was published. So you could read in its entirety an actual draft copy of D&D, and just lots of other things like that. Just amazing stuff. But here's the thing. In the beginning of the book, there are two intros. There's a preface and a foreword. John Peterson wrote the foreword. And before John Peterson wrote the foreword, Jason Tondreau wrote the preface. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very long, but he basically begins, Jason Tondreau, who is a lead designer on Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know much about him, so I won't try to say anything about him. But he writes a bit about the relevance of D&D. Okay, gosh, we didn't know. Here I am buying a book about the history of D&D. Please, tell me what D&D is.
Okay. Tell me what a role-playing game is and what you do with this book.
So he gives his preface, and the thing is, about 50% of his preface, 50% of it is actual, like, what's D&D, why is it cool? And then he says it's presented warts and all, and he spends the other half of his thing essentially saying why the original D&D had bad things in it. He's unhappy about treatment of anybody who's basically not the demographic that existed for D&D in 1974, which was, straight white male suburban middle class gamers in Wisconsin. It wasn't much of a demographic because there was like 10 people playing it. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't have much diversity. Anyway, he gets mad about some really specific things, like the fact that there are Hindu gods in here that have statistics, meaning that therefore you could kill them, which is disrespectful to Hindu deities. What? Okay, yeah, I totally agree. If you're making something right now, knowing that your audience is that, but this is a bunch of nerds in 1974. Okay,
playing a game.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid. But you know what I did? Here, let me show you what I did when I read this, how I dealt with this horrible thing that I had to face. Ready? Here we go. I turned the page. I didn't read it again.
Right. Yeah.
Done. That's all I had to do.
Yeah.
But then, John Peterson also repeats in here the disclaimers, and I will read the disclaimer in its full. And he even says, I'm just telling you the disclaimer, which is that on legacy D&D content, these depictions were wrong then and are wrong today. The content is presented as originally created, because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. So that's what made Elon Musk say that WotC needs to burn in hell.
That seems a little extreme.
I don't think so. I concur.
Okay,
good.
All right.
Good. This is why we have you here. We need a concurrer.
I mean, I'm not the biggest Elon fan. I think that a lot of what he does is,
Oh no, he's a garbage human, but that doesn't affect whether he said this or not. Yeah.
But I agree with the sentiment. I think that these people who are in charge of the D&D brand have no respect for the originators of it, the creators of it, and they take any opportunity they can to trash these guys. And so it's an accurate statement that, Gygax and crew are being disrespected.
It's a good point, and I'm of two minds about this, because I think that it wasn't necessary to write those things on there, because if you're buying something from that was published in, I don't know, 40 years ago by a company that didn't even exist at the time, you should be smart enough to know they didn't write whatever you're reading in there. So if you encounter something you don't like, you'd be an idiot to get mad at the new company for it. I don't think they need a disclaimer on there.
It can apply to anything. Can you read, can you read Tom Sawyer and expect to be reading Twain through the lens of today?
Well, and that's the trouble, is that people are so devoid of nuance that they might read Mark Twain, they see a word they don't like, and because they don't understand that he was lampooning it or whatever, they don't have the context they need.
Right.
And there's, this is what I call the Archie Bunker complex. It's, you talk to people who are just like, oh, Archie Bunker was horrible and blah, 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 blah. And they want to like imply that on the show itself and the creators.
Right. Or Carroll O'Connor himself. And he was the opposite of that.
And Carroll O'Connor created Archie Bunker to snub his nose, to point all this stuff out. Archie Bunker was the opposite of Carroll O'Connor. He created that character as a farce to point the finger at it.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and so there are people who don't get that, and there's a lot of
Poe's Law. Have you heard of that one?
Yes, I have heard of Poe's Law.
Poe's Law, which I cannot quote, but it basically says it is very easy to parody something and then have people mistake your parody for actual advocacy.
Right.
Because what I was going to say is, at the time, he was, what is it, Rob Reiner?
Rob Reiner.
Yes. Rob Reiner, yep.
He was coaching Rob on the meathead role because Rob was young and green actor. And so he was actually teaching that at the same time that he was developing both characters at the same time.
Yeah.
Carroll O'Connor is amazing. He was an amazing person.
He really was.
I mean, he had a sad life at the end because his son died of a drug overdose.
Yep.
And he went on, a mission in life to try to help other parents with children who became drug addicted. And and he was very sad at the end. He was ruined by what happened to his son.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
But he really was. He was a great guy. He was an amazing individual. But going back to this,
staying on Archie Bunker for just 1 second before you go back to this, because I think this is actually pretty relevant that you brought it up, because you mentioned that some people will get upset because they feel offended by the depiction of Archie Bunker, the things that he said as a character, and then you also get people who are like, I think he's really right, and they don't understand that he was making fun of people like that, and they want to agree with him. And I think what we're going to talk about with Gary Gygax, there's some things that are similar here. At no point was D&D lampooning conservative values. It wasn't doing anything like that. But there are people who definitely misinterpret what was being written and done at the time in both directions.
Right, because they want to look at it through the lens of their own personal viewpoints today. And so they assign a belief value to something that isn't intended to have a belief value assigned to it. It's a game.
To be fair, I am going to want to talk about some of the things that I'd have issue with. You can't necessarily just say, oh, it was the times. But before I say any of that, I want to have a little empathy for the people who I think are diametrically opposed to me, right? Like, I am definitely not one of the people who goes around getting mad because D&D's woke now or whatever it is that somebody is, right? That's not me. I'm the diametric opposite of that. But I want to have a little empathy for the people who do say that. And if anybody, maybe you can tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. The way I see it is, if you grew up playing a game, you have a nostalgia for your youth, you remember the things that you grew up with, that you loved, the game, you didn't see it as problematic in any way, you saw it as fun, right? And then later, somebody comes along and tries to judge it on today's viewpoints, like you say, or whatever they do. They bring up these things, and it's very easy to feel attacked when somebody does that, because you just want to talk about your fun game and they want to talk about misogyny and racism, and you don't want to talk about that. And so I think it's understandable for someone to get defensive and to say, you're attacking me as a person. If you say the game I like is bad, you're calling me bad. And
right, because you're basically saying that you're supportive of it or something.
And some are. I mean, let's be fair. Some are.
Sure.
But I think that it's natural if you feel that somebody's attacking something you love to think that they're attacking you too. And I think that's a shame.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Hey,
I guess people get emotionally invested into the game, and it is in part due to that nostalgia that you mentioned. And because I think it's deeper with D&D than other games, or any role-playing game, not just D&D,
of course.
because it is creative collaboration, because people create these memories. All of us have situations where we can recount something hilarious that happened at the game table with our family or friends, and we're still telling the stories to today. So I guess for some people, when they see the hobby being assigned this certain sort of belief system that is contrary to how you might feel yourself, you become annoyed, and you feel like it is a personal attack on the thing that you love, I guess.
Yeah. And everybody saw the hobby their own way, you know. I came into it later than the 70s. You know, I started playing sometime in the 80s and completely away from any of the context of that. So when we were playing it, it had more. I remember the first time I ran into somebody who had anything that could be considered, you know, right-wing views. I'm like, how could you possibly play a role-playing game if you have those views? It's all about, you know, being this outcast weirdo, and that's what you're against. I didn't get it, you know. But if I look at how war gamers came together in the 60s, naturally, these were going to be people with, I'm going to say small c conservative views. And I'm not talking politics here. I'm just talking the sort of people who are going to want to sit around and read complicated books about military strategy from 100 years ago. These aren't going to necessarily be your bra burning, pot smoking, tree hugging lefties, probably, I'm guessing. So
I don't know, because I think that there's you have to also think that back during that time, the Lord of the Rings paperbacks were the thing. You know, you had people spray painting Frodo lives under bridges and stuff like that. You know, it was a huge thing. So I think that there was a sort of confluence of that wargamer type that you mentioned and the hippie pot smoking Lord of the Rings fan.
Right, that's where you get your D&D, because before that, I mean, you know that there was a big backlash against when Gary introduced the concept of fantasy wargaming or fantasy gaming. Wargamers, a lot of them were just furious. They didn't
what
want
the fuck is this, right?
Yeah, there was the fantasy supplements and chainmail.
Oh, it really upset a lot of people, the grognards of the day, right?
Yeah, what is this crap?
and even so, you know, people might talk about this being modern, but I looked up some of the things that were happening around the time. And one of the things that kind of caught me by surprise happened in 1973. So diplomacy had its own big fandom going on at the time. And there were diplomacy zines where people would write about their games and they would trade them with each other. And one of them was called The Pouch. And one of the editors was a woman named Penelope Naughton Dickens. So Penelope Dickens was the editor of The Pouch, and these games, these zines were really intended for a small group of people. It was almost the same as saying this is just people sitting around my table. They were not really magazines meant for the public.
Right.
So the reason I bring that up is because there's a big difference between what's acceptable amongst your friends who know you and what's acceptable to say in public with people that don't.
Sure.
So you're with your table with friends. You can make an inside joke. Your friends get it. You know what's going to offend them and what's not. And that's fine. And in the diplomacy zines, people were talking as if they were just with their friends. And one person threw off a few slurs, called somebody, these are not super harsh words today, so I don't feel I need to warn anybody about the words I'm about to say. He called one guy a wop and another guy a queen, right? And these were amongst their friends. It was a joke. They all got it. They laughed. It was fine. Right. She felt, hey, if somebody reads this who's not your friend, they could be upset by it. She wrote an article in The Pouch saying we should censor speech like that. And she was immediately attacked by everybody. So these kind of thoughts were going on. And the other one that I think you probably know about, Jeffrey, was do you know about the article in Alarms and Excursions that happened right at the beginning of Dragon magazine, the one that called Hell No Gygax?
Oh, I think I know the one that you're getting at.
Well, tell you what, let's bring this up. So Peter, if you want to bring up first that Dragon magazine article. And so I do own the DVDs that have the articles in here. Okay, so this is both of them. So on the right, we see an article by Len Lakofka called Notes on Women in Magic, Bringing the Distaff Gamer into D&D. This is 1976. First of all, a distaff gamer, I had to look that up.
Distaff, what is that?
Distaff, it's a very old word. It's a part of it's for spinning, like if you're spinning yarn and wool, but
yeah,
the way it's used is it's basically a synonym for women's work. If you call it distaff work. So it's sort of a way of saying like stay in the kitchen, right?
Wow, so I've never heard this word.
I had to look it up. I'm like, wow, Len, you've got quite a vocabulary for misogyny. Yeah. so the whole article was basically talking about how he didn't feel that D&D was sufficiently segregated amongst its characters, that there should be more about, the ladies shouldn't have charisma, they should have beauty points and blah, 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 And I knew Len, in his later years, he wrote for us at Gygax magazine. He would have never approved of an article like this later. He was young, right? You're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm only bringing it up because it's why you see the image on the left. So for anybody who's listening, the image on the left is a drawing by Sandy McIntosh, and this appeared in Alarms and Excursions. You see a bunch of different female adventurers, and they are holding up some effigies that they're hanging on nooses, and the effigies have signs around their necks, and they say Lakofka, Kask, and Gygax. So they're hanging in effigy Len Lakofka, Tim Kask, hi Tim if you're listening, and Gary Gygax.
Wow.
And anyway, the article that accompanies it is just basically a rebuttal to Len Lakofka's article. And so I only bring that up because I'm just pointing out that people did talk about it back then. There were things, and we can bring up some quotes. Right. You can definitely find quotes from Gary Gygax from the time that are outrageously sexist. But my point is, while I would be absolutely against anything like that being written today, and I would have argued with him if I'd been around at the time, I think it's ridiculous to try to define an entire person by one thing they said at one time, or to define an entire hobby by something somebody said. And I don't think that it diminishes anything about Gary Gygax's achievements and legacy.
Right.
To find something like, that was a bad thing to say. Yeah.
So let me chime in here a little bit.
That's fair.
Anyway, I'm off my soapbox.
Okay. So I'm going to get on my soapbox. Here comes mine. Humans are complex creatures, right? And one of the things that humans like to do is judge other people. It makes you feel good about yourself.
Yes.
Helps you justify your views, all that, right? But every person is super complex. We are legion. That we are a lot of things. Nobody is one thing. We are a lot of different things. And as we age, we learn, right? So we make mistakes as we're younger. And as you get older, I mean, look, if you can't accept that people learn and change as they get older, then there's something wrong with you, because it apparently means you don't understand that you're going to change and get better as you get older. It's just the way it is. You learn things. But things are also get taken out of context, like there's context out of time, context out of the discussions you're having with people, context out of like the group that you're in. So I was reading something somebody had written about Gary, and it might have been Frank Mincer had written this in one of his posts or something.
Yeah.
And he was saying that some of the stuff that's being said about Gary is taken completely out of context. Like it's kind of like when you see a document, and like if you were to pull one sentence out of that document, it could make a person look really horrible. Like maybe they say, Hitler did nothing wrong, right? And maybe that's the quote you pull out. Now, hold on, I'm getting going somewhere with this. You pull out of the quote.
Okay, to be clear, Gary did not say that.
No, he didn't. Let me finish. But let me finish. So here's an example. That's a perfect example. If somebody pulled this out of our podcast, they can make me look like a horrible person because I just said that. I just did. But what I was going to say was that you didn't read the sentence before and you didn't read the sentence after. And the sentence before it might have been like, this is the dumbest statement I've ever fucking heard.
Yeah.
Right. But then you pull that sentence out of context and now it makes the person look like they're horrible when they were saying that this is the dumbest thing they've ever heard in their life.
Right.
And I think some of that, I know some of that goes on the internet, like if you've,
right.
I sometimes look at somebody first day on the internet, huh? Right. Like
right.
So
this is why we tell our teenagers too, right? Like, you be careful about what you post on Instagram or whatever, because the internet is forever, and
it is forever.
They're young and immature and they think something's funny, where it can come back to haunt them later with a job application or a college application or anything.
And then sometimes like there are things that I think are really funny that are kind of disturbing, like, and taken out of context. If I just said, hey, I thought this was funny, you'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But the reality is, when you look at it in its full context, and it's, the reason why I think it's funny is because it's so absurd. Like, it is something that is so absolutely absurd and just ridiculous that to me it's funny.
Like
it's not funny because
video or something.
What's that?
Comedy is an entirely different
video
thing.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Comedy is a whole other thing too, because comedy will be offensive, and it's like Mel Brooks said. Comedy is what is it? Tragedy is when I get a paper cut on my finger. Comedy is when you fall into an open sewer and die.
Oh my God. Holy shit. And see, and we're again, right. Look, we're laughing at that, but none of us really think it's funny if somebody.
We don't really want somebody to fall.
Right.
Exactly.
Peter, I think you sent me the thing that one of my favorite comedians, Jimmy Carr.
Yes,
he's hilarious. He's insanely offensive all the time. But everybody's in on the joke, and somebody got very mad at him, and he came back to me and said, I am sorry. I am so sorry. And they're like, you don't mean that. He's like, exactly. You see, sometimes I say words I don't mean.
Right.
Like when you're
it says, oh, so now you understand what comedy is.
Now you understand that sometimes words don't mean what I say.
Right. So, but just bringing this back to the whole Gary Gygax thing and things he said, things he wrote, the way the game is and all that kind of stuff. It really was at the time in the early 70s. Let's be fair. I mean, like, unless I'm missing something, unless I'm completely missing something, it was mostly white dudes playing the game.
It was a small amount of people playing it, period.
Right. And the reason why I say it is because I was playing it in 1980s when I first started playing. And, I joined the fantasy club at my high school, and I went to there was a library group, and we played. I don't think I saw a girl gamer, a woman, female, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, whatever you want to call it, until I was like 18, I think. Never saw anybody. Now, people tell me, oh, yeah, they were all there. I was like, okay, great. Maybe they were. They weren't where I was. You know what I mean? Like, I never saw them. But now there's a lot of female gamers, and I think it's great. I think it's awesome. But at the time, they just weren't. It just wasn't a thing. We were the demographic.
And I think it's pretty fair to say, I loved playing D&D as a kid, and there is stuff that we said at our table that I would not say today. And if somebody had a video of me doing it, that would not be a fair way to judge me as a human being today.
Wait a minute, are you saying you learned something as you got older?
I mean, well, so when we run our games now at conventions, I'm so happy that we get a much different crowd than we would have had in the 1980s, if only for the fact that it means we get more people to play, right?
Sure.
But also, I appreciate the fact that now when I run a game, I do have to think about how it's going to be received by people who are not the stereotypical white male suburban straight.
But what is that? I mean, are you really running a dungeon any different than you normally would have, or is there any type of?
Yes, because I'm running Top Secret, which is a moderns game, so it's set in modern times. So, there's just certain things like if I have gamers at the table who are using they them pronouns, I can respect them and it doesn't hurt me at all. It doesn't cost me a thing. Somebody was I gave some handouts to everybody. One of them was MacGyver, and they decided that their MacGyver character was going to be non-binary. Cool, great. Now let's continue because you got some spying to do. That made the game more fun for them. It didn't hurt me a bit and didn't change the game. So I was fine with it.
And I'll tell you, Jeff, to your point, I don't run games any differently now. I mean, I guess I do because you get older and you change things. But for the most part, I don't run anything different than I used to.
Right.
And the people who play games at my convention events, I mean, I've never heard a complaint ever about anything. And they just come and they have a good time.
Right.
Peter, I'll give you one that we will leave all names out of this one because you'll know what I'm talking about. We were running a live stream at a convention of Top Secret, and and so somebody decided that was the moment for them to adopt a very, very racist Chinese accent to do their character with. Just no, we had to shut that down because I'm sorry, that doesn't fly. So what might be funny about with a bunch of 12-year-old white kids that don't have anyone listening in is completely different when you have everybody listening in and there's somebody who could hear that and go, why are you making fun of me?
Right.
And to be perfectly the person who did this was not trying to be demeaning in any way.
Not in any way.
It was an innocent. It was literally, I mean, it was innocent. It was innocent. It was innocent. They just didn't know.
But the thing is, so if I were, I'm not going to read this quote I have here from Gary Gygax. I think it was what's his name? Ben Riggs put it in his article, and it's pretty damning. But my point was, you know what? You cannot take one quote and define a person by one quote. If you're going to do that, then you better define them by all the best things they ever did too.
Correct.
Right. And I think
here's what I'm
looking for clicks, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Look at who is getting most engaged in this right now. I'm going to just pick 4 people, right? I'm going to take that guy from Wizards of the Coast, Jason Tondro, and Elon Musk, and Frank Menser, and Rob Kuntz, right? So Jason Tondro, he has a agenda, which is that he works for a corporation with an HR department that needs to be, committeeing everything they do. So that's his agenda. Elon Musk has an agenda. He desperately wants to be liked for some reason. And I guess billions isn't enough. And so he's decided that he's going to join these right-wing culture warriors, and he's going to do that. Rob Kuntz, he has a lot of issues with Gary, personal issues. So he's going to always, he's who knows where he's going to go, because he's become a big Dave Arneson partisan, right? Because he's mad at Gary for personal things that have nothing to do with this. Frank Menser, now he's jumping on Gary's side because he feels like he got canceled once over the fact that he harassed a woman. Everybody's got a perspective. You cannot just take what they've said and forget about who's saying it.
Right. I mean, I'm biased myself because I worked closely with Gary for 3 years, his final 3 years until he passed away. And I got to know the kind of man he was, the kind of family person he was. I saw firsthand, being with him at several conventions, how he treated everybody who he met. And he listened to all their stories as if they were one of his old friends. And I just saw the respect that he showed for everybody, and the kindness and the patience. And I just saw the way he conducted himself as a creative and as as a dad and a grandfather, and how he treated young guys like me working for him. He was tough love sometimes. It wasn't always, it wasn't always nice. He was a straight shooter.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you became a better designer because of it.
Yes. And so I saw everything that Gary was when Gary was at that age at the end of his life. And I saw who he was. So when I see these things these quotes pulled out of context now, and these judgmental, and a lot of it, like I said, I see as clickbait, that someone wants to, I'm not relevant enough right now, so I'm going to say something that's going to stir the shit.
Yeah.
So, and that's what they want to do. And then they get people talking about them, because who was talking about Ben Riggs before this?
And like, and don't forget, you're talking about clickbait, right? So the whole point of clickbait is to get people to engage with your content. And the reason why you want people to engage is because that is ad driven. So these are people who are saying things specifically to generate clicks so that they make money.
Right. Because if you go on there and you write, I'm really happy, or if you write, I'm really mad, they get the same dollar.
Mm-hmm. So they're getting paid. They're getting paid for your reaction. Right. And this is a scientific fact. People will engage more when they see something they don't like. It's slight. It's not it's like 52% or something like that, but it's more than if they like something. So making people pissed off generates more clicks than saying something nice.
There is a comment that I'm ashamed to say this describes me way too well. And it's just this guy sitting at his computer late at night, and his wife comes up.
Yeah.
And she's like, come to bed, honey. He's like, I can't. Someone is wrong on the internet.
Yes.
We all know that one.
It's funny because that was me 10 years ago. And when I realized that, I quit. I quit the whole thing. I don't argue with people anymore at all. Jason, I know you haven't gotten there yet, but I just don't give a shit what people think.
Me neither.
Like, I literally just scroll past it. Don't care.
Yeah. Don't care.
Clickbait,
I'm
clickbait
doing my best.
Almost doesn't work on me.
I'm doing my best to hide anything that gets my rancor up on the internet and just say, can you just show me pictures of cats, please?
Yeah.
Just show me the cats.
If you go to my Facebook page, 99% of the time, it's just dumb crap like that.
And I'm like that 99% of the time. But this Gygax stuff, I feel like since I was close with him and I was working closely under him at the end, I feel like at this point, to not shoot back a little bit from my end, I feel like it's almost like compliance with it, that I need to say something, and I need to stand up for my friend who's no longer here to defend himself.
Yeah. And that, Jeff, that is a big part of why we wanted you to come on tonight. That's why I thought of you, because when we were like talking about having a guest come on, I was like, oh, Jeff, that's what occurred to me, because we were talking about Gary's legacy. And I remembered talking with you, interviewing you before about the time you spent with Gary. And I thought this would be a really good subject for you to talk on, because I mean, you knew the man, like you actually knew him. And I think, knowing a person personally is, it's so much more tangible than like reading about them or like most of that other stuff doesn't matter. Like you knew him. So, you can tell us like what you thought of him, not of what his writings or what people thought or what other people thought or what, I mean, it's not third party crap. It's like, this is source material.
It's not speculative.
Yeah, exactly. And, I don't know. I mean, like, look, from what I've gathered over all the stuff that I've heard and read and stuff about Gary, he was a complex individual, of course.
Because he's a human.
Of course he was. But well, not only was he human, but he was a very creative individual. Creative individuals are usually very complex. I mean, it's just the nature of it.
Yes.
And but he really seemed like the kind of guy that wanted to create happiness in the world. Like, he made games. And like, games are things that people, they bring people joy. And it seemed like that's what he wanted. He wanted to bring people joy. And like, if he made a few missteps here and there, fine, whatever. That's human. We all do. I make missteps all the time. I try to be the best person I could possibly be. But I screw up. And so if he was making games to try and entertain people, then I just feel like there had to be a good heart there. Like, I want to give him that benefit of the doubt. Like, to me, that means that is the default. like it can be wrong. Like I could be wrong, but that's where I want to lean because I know I like making games, and the reason why I like making games, I mean, I don't make Jason. We don't make money doing this, really. Not a whole lot. We make some.
I've been embezzling all of it. You just don't know.
Here and there, but we really do this out of the love of bringing entertainment to people.
Right.
You know, like I love when people play my games and have a good time. That's actually honestly
like you said,
that's worth the pay.
I think you should be able to say, you know, your impressions of Gary, because you're the person that worked with him the most.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to share a story about a guy that I met. I was out to dinner with Gary and a whole bunch of other people. Luke was there, and it was at Gen Con in 2000. Gosh, it was either 2006 or 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at one of the downtown restaurants in Indy. And as we were finishing up and leaving, the gentleman came up to me and he said, I don't know who he was. He was sitting at another table. He wasn't with our party. And he said, hey, I just wanted to thank you. And I'm like, well, thank me for what? And he said, he said, guys like you making these games basically saved my life. I'm like, oh, come on, you're pulling my leg. I was like, no, really. He said that he served in Desert Storm and he had to spend long nights in a tent in the desert. And it was under really adverse conditions and they were afraid for their lives every day. And without any rule books or any dice, I don't know what we said they did. They made pieces of paper with numbers on them to make dice.
Sure.
They played D&D in a tent. And he said it was such a great form of escape for them at night, just playing without anything there, that how much it meant to him. And I was like, wow. I said, you're thanking me. I'm like, I thank you for, serving our country and putting your life on the line so that, guys like me can make silly elf games,
Right.
You're the one that should be thanked. He's like, no, I really mean it. And I'm like, geez. And I was and Gary was already gone and he had everyone around him and stuff like that. But I told him the story after, and it just like, it's kind of the kind of phenomenon that Gary and his peers created with this great hobby.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it is. That is really good. And
I think
it brings back the whole fact that we'll bring back the whole fact that as humans, we're on this game together, right? There's this game called life, and it's very, very short. It's very finite.
Are you about to break into a Prince song?
No. We're all in this together, right?
Here together to talk about this thing called life.
Called life. Yeah. No, but it's true. Prince was smart.
Yes.
But yeah. So soldiers out there, making sure that we have the life that we want to live, or that we like to live. And the result of that is that we create things that help them get through that. So it's good. It's give and take.
Yeah, I think my last thing that I would say on this is that I think that everything that's written in those intros and just those disclaimers and all that, it's not untrue. It's not that these are false. It's that why do it? Why write these disclaimers? I think if you took the average 18-year-old gamer today and handed them a copy of Desert of Desolation or Blackmore or something, they would play it and they would have fun. And at no point would they think, oh, I was supposed to be upset by something in here. I think they would just enjoy it. And if they encountered something that seemed out of sync with the way we talk today, they would know that there's a difference between 1975 and 2025. I just think that it gets back to the problem I have with WotC as a whole. I don't have a problem with them as a company. I'm very grateful that they keep D&D alive. If they didn't keep D&D alive, we would probably have a hard time keeping the old stuff alive as well. But at the end of the day, they're a corporation. They talk like a corporation. They committee everything to death like a corporation. Their books are written in very sterile corporate speak.
Right.
And so when I go back and I pick up a first edition Dungeon Master's Guide with all of its poor organization and its rambling thoughts, and it's like being in a wizard's den. There's hidden passageways even in the writing. There's a humanity there that you can never get with an HR department and a committee. And that's what I want back. And that's why I don't care. I don't think we need a disclaimer on things. I think people need to just turn the temperature down.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know whether it's that sort of corporate protection building that they feel like that they need to distance themselves from language of the past and ideas of the past. And they do so, they sort of insulate themselves from it by creating these disclaimers because they want to benefit from the brand and its history, but yet distance themselves at the same time. So they're in this weird conundrum where they love it but hate it at the same time.
God damn.
I don't know if it's that or if you just have this group of personalities that want to just prove to the world that they are holier than thou. I think it may be a little bit of both. I think it's more the former than the latter, but I really don't know. But either way, I agree with you, Jason. It just doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. Even if it's right, there's no point. You don't need to be putting it there. It doesn't serve a purpose, in my opinion.
So Jeff, I didn't even think about that until you just said it now. It's like you want to use D&D because it's the it's the thing that you can lay on and make a big profit off of. But at the same time, they're just like, oh, but it was problematic back then, and so that you love it and you hate it, and it's so that is so corporate. And again, I've said this many times on this show, and I'm going to say it again just because I want to make sure it's clear. I don't have anything against WotC or D&D at all. Like I don't care. Like I think they're a fine company. I think D&D is a fine product. I'm not into it. I play other stuff. But they are a victim of their own success. They like you said, Jason, their stuff is corporate and it's very corporate now, but because they are a corporation. They're the biggest, they're the biggest people in the game.
You don't have to be, though. I mean, look at Richard Branson. Look at somebody like that who manages to not be drowning in corporate speak and still does great things.
That's true. It's true.
You know what else it is about it, though, that I notice, and this has been brought up, plenty of times already in social media, but the art of this new edition, the art is also corporate style art. It is literally different forms of player characters in every scene. They are smiling. It's almost like this thing.
It's like stock.
We're going to sell more coffee, so we're going to show that being positive and smiling and being a happy attitude will make more people want to buy the coffee.
So you know what it is? It's not AI, but it's almost AI.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like there's this whole meme about stock photography called women laughing at salads.
Right. That's hilarious.
It's basically that. It's women laughing at salads, only they're dressed up as tieflings.
Right.
But I will say there is one person that I do think I despise out of the whole thing, and that's Elon Musk.
Yeah, I know you don't like Elon.
That guy can just go to Mars. As far as I'm concerned.
And I
don't mind him. I find him amusing. I think he's over the top, but I think he's right on this score, though. The whole topic of the night.
The trouble is he doesn't play D&D. He has no dog in this fight. He didn't even know about it until somebody pointed it out to him.
But
he's trying to get engagement for his platform. Twitter is dying. Everybody's leaving, and he's like, I gotta stench the bleeding somehow. I'll get all the people who want to play Culture Warrior, and they'll come and hang out with me now. So that's all it is. He's just trying to get his platform.
Jason, we don't know. Maybe he did play D&D, so we're not going to say that he
I will say this. I found one piece of evidence of him having played D&D as a teenager. I found a story from his teens, from somebody who was a friend of his, that was basically about him and another friend going to a gaming store. They wanted to get a module. Elon didn't have enough money. He talked the guy into letting him take it home, that he would come back and pay for it later. Because he said, whatever he did, he had his gift of the gab, and he just never came back. He just stole the damn thing. So, I mean, and that seems about the same as the way he does business today. So,
yeah. But,
anyway.
I mean, but here's the thing. I don't think he's a trash person. Like, there are things I like about Elon. There's things I don't like about him. Again, human being, complicated, whatever.
I couldn't think of a single thing I like about him. Not one.
Why? I'll tell you the single thing I like about him. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The NASA discontinued the shuttle program.
Mm-hmm.
We had no way into space. Period. We were paying the Russians to get into space.
Yeah.
He gave space back to us.
No, we paid him to do it. His entire
It
company
doesn't.
is taxpayer funded.
I know. I
All
don't
taxpayer
care.
funded crap. He didn't pay for nothing.
It's fine. That's not what I'm.
Jeff Bezos could have done that. Anybody could have done that.
It doesn't matter. He did it.
And
that's
he did
my
it the
point.
wrong way.
I don't care. He got us back into space.
I do.
And that's what I care about.
I would knock SpaceX out of existence if I could.
No, whatever. Anyway,
Absolutely.
So we'll disagree on that. That's fine.
Absolutely. He's
That's fine.
No, his whole thing is he's just trying to put up more satellites to make it harder for astronomers to look at the night sky.
There's so much space. That's a whole different discussion.
There's not one redeeming quality about him.
Jason, this is Tabletop Weekly, not SpaceX Weekly. So it is not. We'll table it. We'll table it. But
yeah. Elon Musk, again, if you're listening, I will fight you.
That's awesome. All right. Anyway,
let's get to the next.
Huh?
Okay, let's wrap that story up.
All right. So that story. I think it's wrapped. I think we said everything we're going to say on that, right? I mean, so let's.
Your guy gets good. Elon Musk bad. End of story.
Yeah, so let's give Jeff a moment here because he's been such a good guest and so insightful on all this stuff.
Yeah, we really
Jeff. We do, and we like Jeff. We're personally friends with Jeff. He's actually, his phone number is on my phone, and we see him all the time at conventions, and I've had him on my show Mythwits a bunch of times. But at any rate, Jeff, I love you as a creator. You're a cool person too. I like it. You actually commiserated with me the one time I had an issue with another person in the industry.
I did.
We won't name names.
Okay.
But you know what it is. And we've been friends for quite some time. But like, dude, tell everybody about your product, Hyperborea.
Oh, well, we started the first edition of the game back in 2012. It was a box set. And it was a small project. And I thought at the time when I created it that I would have these. I think I printed about 1,200 box sets, and I thought that I would have them forever and sell one box set a month. But I sold out of them.
And your garage would be full of them.
Right. But actually, it to my surprise, it took off and it did really well. And so I went to a second edition hardback of it. And encompassed the whole box set in one hardback and added more monsters and spells and stuff like that. And then that sold out. And so then a few years ago, we went to the third edition. So that's this book here.
Hold that, keep that up. Yeah, there we go. Yep.
Yeah, this is the player's manual, and then I have the referee's manual here. This is the third edition of the game that came out with a few years ago, and so it's still going strong. A lot of people are playing it. We have an active Discord community and, a great forum for it. And lots of people are playing it. We have a Foundry edition that we're starting to unroll. It's in its early stages right now, just the system. And it's much to my, surprise, luck, whatever you have it. There's a lot of people who like to play sword and sorcery D&D style role-playing game that has a touch of the weird fantasy, weird science vibe to it, the weird ancient Atlantean tech and stuff like that, in a sort of humanocentric world that is inspired by the fiction of Robert E. Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, and H.P. Lovecraft, and a lot of the other pulp authors too, such as Abraham Merritt, Fritz Leiber, Jack Vance, all those all the books that influenced me growing up. There's a little bit of everything in this game.
Yeah, I was going to say if anybody ever, if I talk to anybody who loves sword and sandals fantasy, this is the game I point them to. The Elsfrag the Camp kind of worlds. This is the place that you can really, really play that the best. That's what I believe.
Hey, look, I'm going to go out on a limb here. There's been several releases of Conan type games. There's I don't know, TSR did their Conan game, and I don't know how many other people have done fucking Conan games. There's been a ton of you know what? Yeah, yours is the most Conan of all the Conan games. You
I've heard that before.
It's not called Conan, but it's more Conan than any other Conan game I've ever.
He was a Hyperborean.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, Jeff did it the best. He's done it better than anyone's done it.
Yeah. And I will just quote from the chat here from David Benavides. It's a wicked good freaking game.
Yeah, wicked good. David. You can tell he's from the Northeast.
And who knows? Maybe the judges will be interested in it. We'll encourage you to nominate some of your games for what we're going to talk about as our final just one thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you want to bring up? Do you want to bring up the site? Do you want to bring up the on the screen there?
Oh, let me give me 1 second. Go ahead, start talking about it. I'll bring it up.
So we were thinking about what we wanted to do to honor James Carpio.
I'm really sorry if you guys lost, by the way. I know you guys are really close friends with him. I was friends with him, but more from a distance kind of thing, just seeing him at cons and chatting here and there. I went to his wedding. I considered him a pal over I think I started to get to know him around maybe 2010, 2011 is when I first met him, and saw him around conventions ever since, and got to know him and his wife, Mary. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful person. I was really sad to hear his loss, and I felt really bad for you guys who were his close friends and stuff. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I thank you.
No, thank you.
I really appreciate you saying that. I think that everything you've said is true. And James talked about you very, very glowingly as well.
Yes, he did. Jeff, he really liked you.
Yeah. And your work, because your work is very much to James's taste. And so that is a segue into what we're going to talk about. We were talking about what can we do to really honor James and also think about what he loved about games. And so we've decided to do a gaming award. It's going to be a James Carpio Memorial Gaming Award. And we're going to do the first one this year. It's going to be in February at TotalCon. It'll be called the Golden Fez. That's Peter's name that he came up with.
Yes, that's awesome. The Golden Fez, because James could wear a fez like nobody else.
He did. He'd like a boss.
Yeah,
boss. He owned that shit.
Yeah. Yep. When I was in Istanbul, the first thing I did was run and look for a fez for James because I knew that.
Right. He would wear that fez and he had that shit-eating grin on his face when he did it.
It was great. So we're going to do the Golden Fez Awards. We're opening nominations right now. We're going to be doing these every year at TotalCon. This year it's going to be February 22nd. And there are going to be several categories, which we'll go through. And Peter, why don't we just go back and forth on the names? I'll start.
Okay.
All right. So there's going to be one.
Wait, hold on. Wait, Jason, real quick before you announce it. Let's do this. Let's talk about it because Jason and I decided because it's important. We decided that we're not going to do the same awards every year.
Right.
And even if we do the same award, it may not even have the same name. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want to be a little different than other gaming, like other award type things. And it's really in the nature of James. Like all these names and stuff are in the nature of stuff that James would have approved of. And
we sat down and what we did was we went and got at least I got every text message I'd ever had with James going back, for 14 years, every email, every message, everything I could find, every voicemail, just everything, which by the way was very bittersweet to sit there and do that, to be with James again for a while, just to get back into James's head, talk to Mary about this, all of that. So yeah, the name of these awards are definitely things that we know James would love. And maybe we'll have different awards each year. Some of them we'll keep, some of them will change. Like you said, we'll have fun. So we'll go back and forth. We have 8 of them. And actually, you know what? Since we have them on the screen, Jeffrey, you can read one of them too. It'll go
Sure.
me, then Peter, then Jeffrey. All right. So
Okay.
the first category is going to be the Holy Hand Grenade Award for the best new game mechanic.
Yeah. The next one will be the Pick Up and Play Award for easiest game to learn.
And the next one is the Velvet Smooth Award for best design and production.
Yes.
I love that. I love that name.
That's actually one of James's movies that he loved, was called Velvet Smooth with Pam Grier. So he loved a good B movie.
Oh yeah, everyone loved Pam Grier.
Yes.
How can you not? The next award is going to be the Everlasting Fun Factory Award for the best game published prior to this year. So that all the rest of them are for new games, but we're going to reach back and find one that's just still good.
Yeah, because Jason and I talked about this, and we wanted to make sure that we would have an award because this is it's the best way we can channel James, right? It's an award for games that he liked, that he would have liked, that were published prior to this year, because obviously he's not here this year, and this is a way for us to reach back and like channel James in our best way possible.
Yeah, it might be a game from 1 year ago. It might be a game from 40 years ago. It's just the point is it doesn't have to be new.
Right. So the next one is the Forge of Destiny Award for world building.
And then we have the Hack the Planet Award for most unexpected idea.
And
I love this one.
The Bucket of Blood Award for the best combat rules.
Right. And then finally, the Golden Fez Game Award of the Year, Game of the Year Award.
Yeah. So those are the categories for 2025. And we're asking people to nominate themselves, because you have to send us a copy of a PDF at least. Basically, what we'll do is we'll probably get a form put up to make it a little bit easier. But for right now, people can just email us at hello@solariangames.com. And you can send a PDF of your game. And if you want to specifically be considered for a particular category, you can say so, but we might just pick you in a different one if we think it's really good at that too.
Yeah.
And if you want to send a physical game instead, because maybe you don't have a PDF or something, we'll give you an address to send it to, but it will not give you an advantage. We're not going to make any we're not going to treat people better because they sent us a physical game. PDFs are fine.
Right. We want to make it as easy for people as possible. We don't want, because we're independent game designers. We know the cost associated with sending physical product to somebody, and we don't want to require that in any way.
I don't even submit for the Ennies anymore, because you have to mail physical copies to like 10
Poland. Yeah, they're one of them. They want you to send them to Poland.
Yeah, no way.
That. We're indie game designers. we're happy to make any money.
You know how much it's going to cost to mail a bunch of stuff to Poland? It's like $100 of postage.
Right.
No so if you want to send us a physical product, that's cool. We'll take it. But honestly, if you have a PDF, just send that, because it's easier for you. It's easier for us. It's whatever.
Yeah. So we're really looking forward to doing this, and we'll live stream the event. People do not have to be at TotalCon to win. Because we're not going to only award people who are in the Northeast. So
the cost that we will absorb. So the cost that we're absorbing is these are going to be physical awards. You are going to get a physical product. We haven't 100% decided on what that's going to be, whether it's going to be a plaque or a physical model or whatever.
I was just going to get some crayons and a piece of paper.
Right. We haven't decided that yet. This is all brand new. But whatever we do, that'll come out of our pocket, and the shipping to you will come out of our pocket. So that's something that we're going to do. So if you So if you're in Poland and you made a great game, it's going to cost us some money, but we'll do it. It's all good. And again, like we said before, we may not have the same award next year.
Peter and I are not going to be the only judges. So we're not. So Jeffrey, if you nominate yourself for something here, you're not going to get any automatic kudos just because it's us, because we're going to be having members.
What if I sent a physical game with a bottle of bourbon that happened to fall into the box?
If it just fell out of the back of a truck into a box, maybe so.
I'm just kidding.
No,
we should have a best bribe to the judges award.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be so transparent.
You got yeah. It's just like if you ever go to the Le Mans, the Lemons car show, they always have prizes like that. We should definitely have best bribe to the judges. And
That would be.
we don't even mention the game. We won't even mention which game bribed us. We'll just tell them what the bribe was.
Right.
That's awesome. But yeah, so this is, I mean, and honestly, we're just doing this as a to honor James. You know, it was the best way we could think of to honor James.
Yeah, so we want to make sure his name's on it. You know,
right?
Yeah.
And honestly, look, just so everybody knows, just so it's fair, when we pick something, a lot of it's going to really be weighted by what James would have thought as far as we know.
Yeah, like, Mary's going to be the James's wife. Mary is one of the judges, but she's also going to be the one with the veto power and the sort of, she knows James the best.
Right. So like, you may have something you've done that you think is better. It doesn't matter. It's what we think James would think was better. Right. And this is not a vote thing. Nobody's voting on shit. Voting. It's just us. It's just us deciding what we think James would have loved the best.
Yeah. No awards that get voted on by the community are the ones that get, what's the word? Brigaded.
Yeah. I don't trust those awards. I don't. Because I feel like there's too much that could be tampered with in some way.
Right.
This seems more honest to me.
The Ennies start off with a small panel of judges who decide if your product is going to be nominated. And then once your product is nominated, then it goes to the masses.
And then it becomes a popularity contest.
So when I put my game in there, I was going up a popular Doctor Who game at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
to me, that's bullshit.
Jonathan Reinhardt just put the most distinct explanation of what's wrong with that. He said Bodie McBoatface for the win.
Yes, absolutely, Jonathan. You're absolutely right.
That is what happens if you let people vote.
Right.
Yes. So it's going to be us. We're going to decide. And I mean, like, look, let's face it. What the fuck are you getting? You're getting some award, whatever. Who cares? Right? Like there's you know, at least this one's honest, right? You know, it's not like, I don't know what you expect to get out of it other than this cool little award or whatever.
Yeah.
And we also decided on having these like fun names, like the Velvet Smooth Award, because that is so much cooler than Best Design and Production. You know, like, and these are all names that James would have loved.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. So anyway,
and you can pick something really unpredictable too, because, you know, like I said, obviously I didn't know James, you know, a tenth of as well as you guys did, but I did know enough about him to know that James loved playing a lot of different types of games. So you can really pick a game that's in any type of genre.
Yep.
And it's foreseeable that it would have been a game that he would have liked. It could be science fiction. It could be espionage. It could be, you know, a mystery game or a D&D type game. It could be anything, really.
You're absolutely right. You've got him to a T.
I think there's going to be one of those things where the award is going to be super cool because it has nothing to do with popularity or sales or any of that shit. It has to do with what's fucking slick. You know,
what's cool. You know, James once, this is another thing to prove my point. James once told me, so I have an adventure that's called Rats on the Walls, and it's based on the H.P. Lovecraft story of the same name. So James, a couple of years ago, excitedly came up to me. He's like, I want to tell you, your Rats on the Walls adventure, I have personally run it for more systems than anyone in the world has. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, I've run it for your game, Hyperborea. I've run it for 5e. I've run it for Top Secret, and I've run it for Doctor Who. I'm like, yeah, I bet no one else has done that, James.
Right. You want to hear a funny story? So it's real quick, and we'll wrap this show up.
Sure.
So my cousin Mark, who is he's my cousin, but he's really like my father. So he took me on when I was 10 years old and has raised me since. And he has a fear of rats, has a severe fear of rats. And he used to tell me this story. So growing up, I used to hear the story about this old woman who was devoured by rats in her apartment, right? And it wasn't until later I found out that what he was referring to, what he thought was a real event, was a story. What was it? Was it H.P. Lovecraft or was it Poe? Who was it? Who did that story? The rats and
Rats. The Rats in the Walls was Lovecraft.
Lovecraft. Okay, so he's referring to a Lovecraft story. He thought it was real, that a real event. He thought that was a real event that had happened.
That's awesome.
And it's so funny because when I got older, I was like, oh my God. And I one day I was sitting down with him. I was like, dude, you know this story you're talking about the rats eating this person? I was like, you know, that's a fictional story, right? And he's like,
it resonated with him so strongly that it created this lifelong phobia.
Yes. He has he has the most severe phobia of rodents that I've ever seen in a person.
That's
like
great.
He is terrified of mice and rats. And I'm just like, they're just little mammals. Like, why are you so
would have
afraid
made a
of them?
bad punk rocker then, because we all had a pet rat.
Yes, I had a pet rat. I had several pet rats.
I love rats. They make wonderful pets. They are really.
My favorite was Tar. I named him Tar because that was rat spelled backwards.
I think that is a good place to end for the night.
Yes. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Here.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd love to come on again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime. Absolutely.
Anytime.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this week. And be sure to tell people to nominate for the Golden Fez Awards.
Absolutely. Pass that around. All right, everybody.
Have a good night.